Welcome everyone to another edition of Speak, Listen, Human Stories. And here with me today is the lovely Karina Kennedy. Thank you for coming and being our second guest on the show. By the way, we've no idea which order we're going to put these out in, so I might be shooting myself in the foot there. But anyway, so Karina is a nutritional therapist, registered general nurse, herbalist, naturopath. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Naturopath, reflexologist, and iridologist.
Yeah.
So all of those words mean basically is that you're very clever. You're very much into natural health.
Yeah, it's more around natural.
Natural health. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got that. And then your business is actually called A Natural Choice.
Yep.
And you're currently working on a system of breaking fads. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, breaking fads came about because it was a way of using what I had learned without having to be face-to-face with clients. So it was a system I used with clients that used to come into me. It's a body type system. So it works on your hormone type. And it's basically works along the premise that there's 5 different hormone types. And each one has a different body shape, different personality traits, different ways of eating, different ways of exercising. And it's just about showing people how to do what works for them in a way that simplifies it, because we're all busy enough and stressed enough as it is without adding more complications on top of our life. So it was a way of putting that online. So enabling me to continue working with people in that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then, so obviously we'll get over to it in a minute, but you've had some health difficulties, obviously. That's why we're here. But so with It's a Natural Choice.
Yeah.
What was so before you had some health issues, what was the main goal? What did you want to do?
Well, It's a Natural Choice came about because of my health issues before.
Right.
Because I used to be a nurse. I suppose I always went with the flow of things.
Yeah.
So everyone used to tell me I'd be a nurse when I was younger, and I was like, no, I won't. It's not on my radar.
Yeah.
And so I tried a load of other jobs, and I realised that nursing probably was the one that would suit me, because I liked talking to people, I liked working with people, I liked helping people. So I ended up training as a nurse, but then I ended up being assaulted while I was nursing. So I ended up with a serious neck injury, and then that went into fibromyalgia. So I could no longer nurse.
Right.
And then as a result of that, I had chronic pain for a long time, and the fibromyalgia didn't help either, because the level of exhaustion that I had with that was, I'd never imagined that I could have had anything quite so severe. And so I was never one to sit around and do nothing, but my energy wasn't allowing me to do much.
How old were you when you had the assault and the
27.
neck injury? 27. Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
And you were sort of right up there in nursing.
Yeah, I used to. I mean, I trained at the Royal Free, and then I worked in medical assessment units, and I worked in the A&E in the Royal Free, and I worked in hospitals all over the place. I was in Sydney. I travelled for a year and a half, so I worked in Sydney, I worked in Melbourne nursing, I worked in Cork nursing.
Yeah.
So it was normally quite acute settings. So it was like, as I say, things like A&E and medical assessment units. So I liked being busy.
Yeah.
So that was hard when my neck was injured and I was floored. That was hard because my body wouldn't let me be busy, but my brain kept thinking I could still do it.
Right.
So it was, it took a long time for me to learn to adjust to that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, anytime a regular person such as myself goes into a hospital, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's so busy. Chaos.
Yeah.
So you had to stop nursing straight away.
I carried on after the assault. I carried on for about a month. I couldn't turn my head at all. I mean, I
like
couldn't.
did you probably think it might just kind of go
Yeah,
away?
yeah, I was sure it would. I was
Yeah.
sure that I could just push through it.
Yeah.
And then when I went to see, about a month later, I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't turn my head at all.
Yeah.
Everything else was starting to seize up, and I remember I had seen their doctors, and they put me on like horse tranquilizer kind of size,
serious
pain
like
relief
serious.
and all this, and it still wasn't doing much. So I ended up going to my own doctor, and he just looked at me and said, was I crazy? I shouldn't be even driving a car, never mind working. He said, like, I had a serious whiplash type injury.
Yeah.
But the problem was, because a car whiplash is front to back, this was side to side, because the patient had grabbed my head and yanked it. And I'd felt a rip at the time down the side of my neck. And so it just took forever to heal. Yeah. It really did.
And then, so your fibromyalgia came on
about
soon after that.
Yeah, it was about a year after the initial injury.
Did you think the two are related?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
100%. Fibromyalgia, because anytime anything like that has happened to me through my life, I start researching.
Yeah, of course.
The way my brain works, I start researching.
Yeah.
So with the fibromyalgia, the majority of people that you see with fibromyalgia, it's quite often women. It's quite often women that are in a caring role, and some kind of trauma has happened, and quite often it's a physical trauma, but it can be an emotional one as well. And it's what I realized towards the end was that my fibromyalgia was linked into that trauma, but it was also linked into the underlying gut problems that I always had. And so the body was never quite healing. The inflammation was too much.
Just running to stand still kind of situation.
It was just never really, nothing was really getting on top of it. It was, I could keep it to a certain level that I could function, but it was always there. And I've always been a person that would push through. So it was my inbuilt kind of way of doing things. I would always push through, which didn't help.
And then, did you ever go back to work nursing, or were you just working on the nutritional and re-educating? And
I was about 10 years really sick with it.
Right.
The fibro was in an extreme form.
Yeah.
I remember at the time my cousin's kids, they were only toddlers at the time.
Yeah.
And you know the way toddlers are, they come running, like, Greener, they come running and want to give you a cuddle. And I'd want to let them give me a cuddle. But even that would just, the pain that would go through you, and it would go through you for hours afterwards. Jeez. It just wouldn't calm down. It was like the body overreacts to everything. Yeah. And I remember once someone explained it to me that it wasn't that you're feeling pain at a higher level. It's that all your buffer to pain is gone. Right. So what your body would normally buffer, that was gone. So now you're feeling all of it. And it was the slightest touch on my arm or my leg, and it would just reverberate everywhere. And it would
for hours.
Oh, for hours. It would feel like someone had punched you. And it would be, so it was, that went on for a long time. But as I say, then.
When you say a long time, you're talking like 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was rough. And it was one of those, it's quite funny. I get a lot more sympathy and understanding these days because of like what's going on now. Yeah. There was very little understanding of that. And I actually feel like I was probably in more pain with that, more chronic pain. Couldn't sleep. I was sleeping like 15 minutes at a time. I was vomiting constantly. And it was tough. But then I kind of got to the point where I would give everything 6 months. I'd give everything that I tried 6 months. And if I didn't see a good improvement within 6 months, I figured I probably wasn't going to. So then I would go on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a process of elimination. Mm-hmm. And in the end, I got to a point where I was like, I've got to stop focusing on this. So then I decided to work on the underlying other problems that I had, like the gut problems. And as soon as I sorted my gut problems, like really started working on healing gut problems, the fibromyalgia went. Yeah.
Okay.
It went
Yeah.
within about 3 months.
Yeah.
It went. And I hadn't seen that with anyone before.
Wow.
And it was the underlying, my body wasn't allowing me to heal.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I had to give my body the tools that it needed to strengthen itself.
Yeah.
So I'd stop focusing on the symptom and start looking at the underlying root problems that I had going on.
That's quite amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it genuinely did. Within 3 months, the fibromyalgia was gone. And I remember at the time, my family, it was quite funny because I would get little reprieves every now and then. And as soon as you start to feel better, you just go crazy trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I started to feel better, I could feel it was different. And my energy was back and I started trying to do stuff and everyone was like, will you slow down? You're going to just knock yourself straight back into this again. But it didn't. It never, it didn't come back until I would say last year I felt symptoms of fibro. And that was just because everything that's going on now is probably just kicking off a little bit of that's maybe just dormant.
So obviously what I'm taking from that, generally speaking, apart from it being your story, is that the importance of healing, giving your body the tools, and doing that in such a way as the right for your body, for the individual's body. Yeah, do you know, it's like that book, Eat Right for Your Type. You know, for your blood type and all that. So what's going to work for you isn't necessarily going to work for me.
No, there's no one fix for everyone. Right. There really isn't, because even you could have the same disease that I have. Yeah. But you've got completely different things going on in your body. And
it's not just man, woman. It's completely individual.
No, you've got different medical history, different emotional history. Yeah. It's all, it all comes to play.
Yeah, my emotional history is fine.
Yeah, so's mine.
Yeah, absolutely no problems there. So how long was it then, so you got your reprieve and you started to feel better, you started to do things again. Yeah. Would it be fair to say you were kind of getting your life back? Yeah. So what happened then? So you had your reprieve, and then what happened with the, that you felt different?
So I probably late 2019, I started to feel really exhausted. And as I said before, I was the kind of person that pushed through things. And so basically, once I'd started feeling better, my neck had improved, the fibromyalgia had gone, and I started building my practice. Yeah. And so I had literally, it took a long time to build up because, it's word of mouth, and it was a lot of trial and error, seeing what worked, what didn't, both for me and for my clients, So I had finally got to the stage where I had a really busy, thriving practice. Yeah. And I was back to back, like 12 hours a day, and I wouldn't take breaks because someone might run over and I didn't want to be late for the next person. And so I wasn't giving myself proper breaks. I'd also been through a lot of stress with a few different things in the year or so before. And so I started to feel really tired, and I was putting it down to being busy. I was putting it down to work, but it was a real unnatural tiredness. And then we ended up in March 2020, everyone went into lockdowns, and the tiredness didn't go. And at that point, I would have expected it to start easing off because I wasn't busy anymore. I was going for walks up the lane and, sitting in the sun. It was but I was still exhausted, and my back was bad. I'd noticed my back had been bad for a little while, just sore, just uncomfortable. But again, you know, I'm a reflexologist and I do different things, sitting, standing. So I just put it down to that. There's a history of spina bifida in our family. So used to have backaches when I was younger and just thought maybe it was coming back. I was getting to a certain age and all the things that you tell yourself. And anyway, we were coming out of the lockdowns and I was about to get into the GP, and the next thing my back went and I ended up being brought to A&E by ambulance. They didn't pick up anything in A&E. They didn't pick up anything in the x-rays. And I was sent home, told nothing wrong with me. And I, at this point, knew there was something wrong with me. I knew the way my back had been, that there was something seriously wrong. I also knew the radiographer had seen something on the x-ray because I heard him say it, and the doctors were telling me nothing was on the x-ray. But I had heard him say that that shouldn't be there. So I booked to get into my GP, and when I went into him, he examined me and straight away he sent me to the breast clinic. And within that, in a couple of weeks, I was told I had stage 4 breast cancer. And as I would say at the time, I was riddled. It was, it's in my spine, it's in my hip, it's in my liver, in my lungs, it's in all the bones, it's kind of in the breast. It's, as I said, the only place it isn't really is in my brain, which is kind of a handy one at the moment. But that's where it would go next if it was to go somewhere. So yeah, then it was trying to get on top of that and trying to get my head around that.
Jesus.
So
how did you feel when you got given the news?
So I was initially it was shock. And then there was something in the way that the oncologist I had at the time told me that really made me mad. It wasn't the diagnosis. It wasn't being told. It wasn't any of that. It was as I was leaving, put his hand on my shoulder and did. It was the thing I could not take for the first year, the head tilt. And it's when someone feels really sorry for you. And he did this head tilt and he was just, I'm awfully sorry. And I could have throttled him because mentally I was coping with it. But that made me feel like he thought I didn't have any chance whatsoever.
Or hope.
None. Yeah. And he was the expert.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me the impression, and you know, most of the doctors at the time made me feel as well that I probably had 6 months at best.
So, when was that? Sorry.
That was August 2020.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm doing good.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing really good.
So since you got diagnosed, you obviously lean heavily on your nutritional health.
Oh, massive.
Even more so than you did when the fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what's got you so far?
I do. I think it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I don't discount the medication and I don't discount what I'm doing. I think that I think it is a shame that more people are not given information about what they can do to strengthen their bodies while they're going through this.
Yeah.
That frustrates me as a nutritional therapist, as a herbalist, and as someone that's going through it.
Yeah.
It frustrates me because you're made to feel as a natural therapist that cancer is a topic you're not really allowed to talk about too much. So I, again, started researching. I started looking at all sorts of different herbs and different, the specific cancer I have and the medications I'm on, and making sure nothing I was going to do was going to interfere. And it was funny because at the beginning I was so scared to interfere with the meds. But as I've gone on,
Has it kind of changed the other way around? That
Yeah.
you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so different now. The way I feel about it is so different now. I'm 4.5 years on from when my diagnosis, and like that's my diagnosis. So I probably had cancer in my system for a long time before that. You know, and without realizing it, and the fact that I was so healthy, you know, maybe the symptoms just didn't show up, you know, until I mean, they showed up for a while, but I just thought I was just tired. I thought my back was just a bit sore from work. So, and it wasn't something that, you know, I could have picked up on at the time. It wasn't, your brain would not go straight to breast cancer with my symptoms. And so, yeah, now it's more, my whole focus now with what I'm doing is to strengthen my system as much as I can. My immune system has never dropped, which my oncologist,
that's amazing.
Yeah, my oncologist was amazed by it. She's
incredible.
Never seen anyone on the meds that I'm on have that. They've always dropped. So the way I look at it is everything I'm doing myself it's strengthening my body. A big part of what I do, again, go back to the gut, because most of our immune system's in the gut. Also, the immune system is what is the one thing in the body that will fight cancer cells, you know. So if your immune system is struggling, it's got no chance. You know, it can't fight back. So I'm giving it the tools it needs to do its job. And then the other thing, the other way I've probably always looked at cancer. When I looked at it, cancer behaves like a parasite. It feeds off the host until the host is no longer there and it's got nothing left to feed off. So I've treated it like a parasite. I've used herbs that I would use for parasites, you know, and there is, if you look into research on cancers, there is definitely a higher number of, there's much higher numbers of people with parasites that have cancer than those that, there's less people that would have parasites that don't necessarily have cancer. And again, that can come back to the immune system struggling. So it's kind of, I looked at all those different aspects, and but it's more about feeding the body. It's about, you know, keeping
nourishing
the
yourself.
body, and that's mentally as well.
And that's emotionally.
Huge,
They all feed into each other.
Yeah.
So, slightly different question is, how do you think have any of your relationships changed since? Has this caused
it's
an ebb and flow of?
It's quite visceral. It's quite extreme.
Okay.
So there would be friends that I would have been very close to that I would say within the first 6 months I never saw again.
Wow.
And there were friends that there are friendships that have got stronger because the people that just, they were there. They didn't, you know, they never walked away. They just showed up. You know, even a text to see how you were doing, or you know, because that's the thing with cancers. Within the first 6 months, it's quite funny, because within the first 6 months, that's when everyone wants to contact you and see, are you okay? And you know, everyone is.
I think it's similar with a bereavement as well.
Absolutely.
You know,
and it is.
It's you know, after the funeral, after the burial, everything like that, and the flowers go dead, and you throw them in the bin. And then where is it? That the person who has died is gone. And then all the people that were there eating sandwiches are also gone. Was it sort of the similar thing?
It's out of mind. It is out of sight, out of mind.
Very odd, isn't it?
It is. It's very, because in the first couple of months, you can't deal with other people.
You haven't got the energy.
Well, you haven't got the energy. You can't be dealing with anyone else's problems.
Yeah.
Because you're literally fighting for your life
Yeah.
at that moment.
Yeah.
And it's when everything settles down, that's when you realize you need everyone. That's when you need the relationships. But by then everyone's gone. Or not everyone, but a lot. An awful lot of people are gone. And then you have another switch where, so like for me, I would always have been, I use humor.
I know.
And
yeah.
But it's a coping mechanism, and I do, and I use humor, and I can have a very blunt way of putting things sometimes. You know, I think that's my mum, and it's nursing. You learn, you get a very dark sense of humor, and you get a very no nonsense practical way of dealing with things.
Yeah.
So, I've forgotten what I was going to say there. That's the brain.
The humor.
But it's, so it was like people would say, I would say, you know, I'm riddled. And then for some people, they're like, oh my gosh, don't use that word. And I'm like, oh, cancer's okay, but riddled is the one that gets you.
You should get Riddler pajamas.
Yeah. It's like riddled, but, you know, recovering, recovering riddled. I don't know. But, I used to use a lot of that. And like, I remember at the beginning, there was a comedy like TV show I used to watch, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And she used to always have this phrase, tits up. Like her manager used to always say to her, tits up, as she was going on stage. And it was head up, shoulders back, you've got this. So when I got breast cancer, I started using tits up as and it was hilarious. It was like certain people thought, and they would send me a message, tits up, you know, whereas other people, it's like, no, that's so inappropriate. But I was the one that was dealing with it. So it was my way of dealing with it, and that was fine. But yeah, I think you do, you learn ways. I remember once being in the supermarket with my mum, and this is only a couple of months after I was diagnosed. And so I've got 4 big tumours in my spine. And so my back gets very sore. And they realised I have spina bifida as well, which they hadn't realised before that. So
Jesus Christ.
It's all in the one area. So my back gets really bad. So I remember being in the supermarket one day, and I just turned around and I said to Mum, I said, oh, my back is killing me. And she goes, is it really bad today? And I went, no, Mum, my back is killing me. Like this. She just went, she lost it. She was like, I can't believe you. And all these people were walking past trying to figure out what was going on. And it was, but you had to.
Yeah.
Because it was there were moments I bawled, you know, there was moments where it was tough. But there was also a lot of moments of laughter and a lot of moments of finding the funny. Yeah, you know, it's like I would always say to my cousins, I want them to play like the Muppets in my funeral. Yeah, if they go if I go before them. Yeah, but I'm not sure I will anymore. Well, I did think for a while there I probably would, but I'm not so sure anymore.
What do you do to like where do you go or what do you do? So you're having a bad week, a bad month with all of it. Yeah. Where do you go? What do you do to escape from that and, you know, heal on a sort of a local level?
So a couple of things. For me, I was always very creative. So I kind of gone back to art and I started crocheting, which was hilarious because my nan tried teaching me crochet when I was a child and I didn't pick it up. Yeah. So I started crocheting and I've made some amazing, like really nice things. I started learning the ukulele badly. I still can't strum properly on it. And
so you've actually brought it with you to... No,
I'm
just joking.
I would not put anyone through that. And I bought a camper van.
Okay, yeah.
And I called her Mrs. Maisel.
A vintage camper van,
It was a vintage camper van. It's lovely. And it's hilarious because the amount of people that would be, oh, you know, I don't know why you don't sell it and get a new one that's really reliable. And it's like, I don't want a new one.
She is beautiful.
Oh,
I've seen
she's lovely.
In 1982, was it?
86.
86,
yeah.
okay, yeah. Gorgeous.
And so, yeah, and she's a left-hand drive. So that was something to learn driving on the wrong side. She's got one of those old gear sticks on the side.
Yeah.
The old handbrake, which I remember.
They call that 3 on the tree, I think.
Yeah. So I never drove with one of those. I did drive with the old, like, pull-out handbrake, the one you twist. There's no power steering on it.
No, nothing.
No.
Yeah. So it's an adventure every time you drive it.
Yeah. I went to Forest Fest last summer, and it was so funny. It took me 5 hours to get down there.
How important? Sorry to
no, go on.
How important is it to escape for a while?
Yeah, you need to.
Like 100%.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things I've said to anyone that I've spoken to since I got my diagnosis is counselling is huge. So your mental health, because one of the things that you don't have the discussion with the medical teams is how to deal with this. Mm-hmm. The bomb's landed in your lap and it's like, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. But there's no real advice on how to deal with that, how to all of a sudden think that, you might be buried before everyone else, or that you might be around to see
There's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine. And my mother passed away from cancer. She was only 47.
Yeah.
So which was quite young, but it was a different time back then. But I feel that she, and this is only my opinion, I feel that she or society or her peers or it was a different time. There was just no support there.
Yeah.
And I think she would have probably got a lot more time.
Yeah.
If there was sort of really basic stuff that we take for granted now.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's only my opinion, but would you agree with that?
I think so. But I think as well, we're better at dealing with those things ourselves. We're better at asking.
There's less taboo.
Yeah, and we're better at asking for those things, and we're better at acknowledging those things. Whereas that, stiff upper lip and, get on with it kind of attitude. Some people have tried pushing. So it's like some people have tried pushing that on me. And, I've basically, the way I look at it is I will never do anything that is purposely going to make someone else uncomfortable. But my personality type was always a pleaser. And getting cancer allowed me to become a bit more selfish. And I wouldn't have liked the word selfish before, but this isn't a case of being selfish just for the sake of it.
Well, they're selfish and self-centric.
Yeah.
And they're totally different.
Very
things.
different.
Yeah.
And this has taught me to really protect my boundaries and be very, very clear about what they are. So, I would always have been the person that if someone had said something that I found hurtful or found dismissive or anything like that, I would have just sat there and taken it, and I would have got upset later. Whereas now I'm quite likely to just go, nope, and get up and walk out of the room. And it's quite funny because it actually, in doing that, the people that have, it's often a pattern they're not even aware of. And when they realize that you have, it's not I wouldn't stay to have an argument with someone, but it's like, nope. And I will, kind of take myself out of situations when I can feel it's just dragging my energy down, because I don't have enough of it to spare anymore. It's a very different situation.
Yeah. So what would you say to what aside from, the medical side of it,
yeah,
what would you say to somebody who had just got a diagnosis or had got a diagnosis 3 months ago or something like that, what's the most important things to give yourself a better future?
Yeah.
However one perceives that to be in that situation.
Well, I'd say the first 6 months is going to be different to the next 6 months. It's going to be different to the next year.
So expect change.
It's always going to keep changing. The first 6 months is you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
So you have to make your needs front and center. You have to.
On all levels.
On all levels. And I see an awful lot of people doing what I used to do, but I've had to learn to stop doing it. And that's pushing through. Your body needs rest. It needs to be nourished. It needs to be looked after. This is the time when you allow others to help you. Mm-hmm. And it's, you ask questions. And if you can't ask the questions, you get someone to ask them for you. You know, the worst thing I found at the beginning was lack of information. I had to fight tooth and nail to get any information about like what my cancer looked like, even from the beginning to where I was, or, you know, how much had it shrunk, or had it changed, or what were my results? And, you know, and without that, I found my brain would go to far worse places than, I mean, things were bad, but my brain would go to far worse places if I didn't have the information. Mm-hmm. So ask the information. Then you start getting into, you can breathe a bit, you know, you can, okay, I got through processing. 6 months, so I can breathe, but you're still struggling to plan ahead. I mean, even a month ahead, you know, you're struggling to plan ahead. Every big occasion, birthdays, Christmas, they become like full of laughter, but also breakdowns, because they're the ones that make you evaluate, you know, things, and they make you wonder, will you see the next one? And whereas day to day, you don't always think that way. Mm-hmm. But I can say this year, I'm 4.5 years in, I'm turning 50 in a couple of months, and I didn't think I would see it. And I'm healthy. I'm doing really well. My tumor markers, everything have been so stable and so steady. And a lot of that is down to medication, and a lot of it is down to what I do myself. I am having exceptional results. And my oncologist would say that. So that doesn't mean it's a norm.
Well, I can see that. I mean, I think the last time that we met was about 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
When you first got your camper van, I think. Was that 3 years ago?
Yeah, you were in Westport, yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh dear.
Yeah. I think it was, yeah, it was a lockdown. We were having, it wasn't the first one, it was the second one.
Yeah. And then, you know, I just remember thinking, you know, because I think we first met in about 2009, something like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh dear.
Yeah.
You know, but now you look perfectly great.
You wouldn't think there was a thing wrong with me?
Well, pretty much, you know, which is amazing.
Yeah.
On so many levels.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just, you know, amazed by what, you know, most of what you said tonight. I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
That you've gone through and everything.
Yeah.
So I really like, it's amazing that you're able to offer so much to potentially other people who are, you know, your experience is invaluable, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, to me, I think that comes from being a nurse. It comes from being a natural practitioner. It comes from, it's my personality. I was, you know, I would be in the group of friends, I would be known as the nurturer of the group. Yeah. And that was, my mum's the same.
Yeah.
You know,
I've met your mum. She's quite a powerful woman.
Very, yeah.
Yeah.
And the same kind of sense of humor, and the same kind of like inappropriate kind of things come out of our mouths.
Get all that, yeah.
So, I kind of, it's always on my mind about how much, and how I suppose at the moment it's a frustration that more people don't realise they have got more power in their hands than they realize.
Yeah. I would be guilty of that. I think we all would.
I think we all are. And I think that's kind of, we've had an awful lot over the years of bashing natural medicines as it being, a little bit kooky or
holistic.
It doesn't really do much, and all this but it actually does. I've seen such huge impact on people over the years of like different conditions that they were going to years for someone over and getting nowhere, and then just by changing a few simple things it gave their body the tools it needed to start fighting back, and they started getting better. And to me, the cancer is the bogeyman. It's 1 in 2 people now are getting cancers. Every time someone dies, first question everyone asks, was it cancer? Every single time. That's how commonplace it is now. But there is so much we can do ourselves. There is so much, look at it as a chronic health issue. Look at it as the body there's something that's missing that's not allowing the body to fight back. So that's the way I look at it. And it's, I'm just throwing everything at it,
And it's winning. You're winning. It's working.
100%.
If people wanted to follow you, employ your advice, where we will put the descriptions, everything in our.
I mean, at the moment, I'm not seeing clients.
Yep.
So I doing the Breaking Fads program. So that's on Instagram at the moment. And the website is there. It's www.breakingfads or breaking/fads.com. That is it's more of a program that's tailored to what works for you food wise, so I put with myself, my sister-in-law Shona have put that together because it's a way of me being able to use my training and my expertise in order to be able to still help people. I'm hoping that at some point I'll get back to seeing clients because I loved seeing clients, but I don't have the consistency of energy at the moment, and I don't have the headspace.
I think people will understand where you're coming from. Where you're coming from.
But that's I'm honest about that, and it's kind of I write a column in the Connaught, which is in a lot of different newspapers around Ireland, and that's a weekly column, and it's just on simple health, advice and things like that. So I'm always giving advice.
There's lots of material already on your Instagram and everything. So that you've for years. So that is it's a natural choice. And
I'm gonna start putting a few more videos up about how I'm getting on and what I'm doing, because it's like I did start it, but I think as well that's my my thinking. I always feel like, when I do the videos to let people know how I'm getting on, I'm like, who wants to know? It's like, but then I realized that if there was someone putting things up like that when I first got diagnosed, it would have meant so much to me of seeing someone healthy, doing well, I mean, there's people that haven't lasted as long as me, and there are other people I know within groups that are 20 years on stage 4 and with stage 4.
And by the way, technically it doesn't necessarily mean you're terminal.
No,
of course not. So
actually I'm called palliative, which that just blew me away. I was called terminal and told that they were going to refer me to the palliative team, and I was like, don't you dare. Because I didn't feel that way. But
one final question. What would you say to somebody's family member or friend has got a diagnosis, some time has gone on, they are that person, not the person who's become ill, but the person doesn't know what to say or doesn't know how to approach, is afraid to kind of, do I talk about it? Do I not talk about it? What would you say would you say just reach out, just be yourself?
I'd say just say that to the person.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
I
to
don't
do.
know what's the right or the wrong thing to say, but I don't want to say nothing.
Okay.
So, because I think sometimes as well, people, the longer it goes on and the longer it's been since someone's reached out, the harder they find it to do.
Yeah.
And it's never too long.
Yeah.
It really isn't, unless something really bad has happened between you, it's never too long.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, I mean, I was talking to you earlier, I've had some really horrendous things said where people have just said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh. Because it was like a verbal Tourette's. It was like the thing that the brain is telling you, don't say this.
This comedy scene where they're just crashing and burning.
Yeah. I mean, but again, it depends on the person. And it's, this is the way I deal with it. But the next person may not deal with it in the same way. They might find certain things, harder to take. They mightn't find them as funny,
Yeah.
But I would say if someone has a friend or a family member that's got cancer and they don't know what to say, they don't know whether they should bring it up or they shouldn't bring it up, say that to the person. Just be honest, because the more you second guess yourself,
it's about showing up, isn't it? It's like even if they don't want to ask the question, no matter what the situation, no matter what. I don't know how to show up for you, but I want to.
Yeah.
How can I show up for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best way.
Yeah. Because I do think an awful lot of the time people want to sympathize.
Yeah.
With your situation. And there's not many that can empathize with it. It's like, as I say, the head tilts at the beginning. If anyone came near me and their head started going that way, I would literally threaten to hit them. I would be like, don't you dare do a head tilt at me. Because it felt like a feeling sorry for it. Instead of
very patronizing kind of.
It felt that way.
Yeah.
I don't think it was being given that way,
but
it felt that way. It was a trigger for me at the beginning. But at the same time, I understood. I understood that people were just trying to, they just didn't know what to say. Yeah. It's a topic that's not hard. It's not easy to talk about.
Yeah, of course.
I think it is. A lot of people like that. Someone said to my mum once, they met her and they said, oh, how's Queen doing? She said, oh, she's doing really well. Yeah, she's doing really well. And this was about a year into my diagnosis. And they just blurted out that they were sure I'd be dead within 6 months, and they couldn't believe I was still alive. And it just cut through her.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think the person who has cancer will often, their way of dealing with it is quite often very different to the people around them.
Yeah.
Because I think it's sometimes harder for the people around them watching them.
Or any traumatic experience.
Yeah. And the person who has cancer, I found myself, a lot of the time my worries weren't for me. They were for the people surrounding me.
Yes.
And how the stress and everything else it puts on them.
So, Karina, on many levels, I'm very glad that you're here tonight. Thank you so much for being so honest.
I know.
And coming from such a good place. I'm sure it'll resonate with a lot of people.
No, I hope so.
Really, really grateful that, you're willing and able to do it.
Yeah.
And, to keep giving. It's wonderful. So thank you very much, Karina Kennedy, everybody. Please do like, subscribe, and share any comments that you have. And if you would like to have a human story that you'd like to share with us, do email. All the details are in the descriptions in the videos and on Spotify. So thanks again. Please do like, subscribe. There'll be more videos coming very soon.